Firstly, let's start with the National Cabinet's decision on the AstraZeneca vaccine. Yesterday, we saw millennials lining up to take their jab now that they're allowed to under the age of 60. But doctors have said, well, we've been completely blindsided by this decision.
Yes, it's all a bit of a shambles when it comes to the vaccination program, isn't it, Danica? And here's another episode. But I think it's a positive thing for Scott Morrison to have encouraged people under 40 to take that step, because how else are we going to get this country fully vaccinated? It's clear there's a lot more AstraZeneca around than there is Pfizer at the moment. So it just seemed a logical step when the risks are so low, no matter what the medical advice says. And we know the politicians have been slavishly following the health advice all the way through the pandemic. But look, if some young people can get vaccinated and lift those numbers, that's very important. 7% having 2 doses in Australia is simply not good enough when a lot of developed countries have about 50 to 60% at the moment.
Yeah, especially that graph that was revealed this week where Australia was last on the list of the OECD nations. Andrew, what about this situation we have across the country now where we've got almost half of our population in lockdown? You kind of wonder, are we pursuing an eradication strategy?
Well, I think Kerry Chant, the New South Wales Chief Health Officer, has said as much in relation to the lockdown in Sydney, which worries me about how long it will run. And I think the reason this has changed is because of the Delta variant. It's quite clear the contact tracers just couldn't keep up with it. They needed the lockdown in order to get to all the exposure sites, isolate all the contacts and shut it down. So this is very concerning. And what we know out of the UK is that there's something like 15 to 20,000 cases a day. 3/4 of those are with people who are unvaccinated, which means a lot of children and young adults. And that the Delta variant there requires 2 doses, not just 1. So the federal government keeps talking about 1 dose, and the numbers in the UK being 80%, it's about 50 to 60% 2 doses. And here they keep talking about 28% 1 dose. But when it comes to the Delta variant, it seems you do need both doses. So that's the concern. The thing that gives us hope, Danica, is that story that Brad Hazzard, the New South Wales Health Minister, told of the Hoxton Park party. 26 people got it. They weren't vaccinated. 7 people didn't. They were vaccinated. And I just think everyone is moving now. Even in WA, you see the big queues towards vaccination. And look, I mean, the lockdown issue is interesting. I think people have had enough. There's even talk, believe it or not, Danica, that Mark McGowan, people are complaining about him in Western Australia because of the lockdown at the moment.
Well, I mean, we do know that WA has always tended, Andrew, to go down the lockdown route, but this time Mark McGowan decided to wait a couple of days. Just finally, there's been this discussion as well that when can we return to a COVID normal? Yesterday, Gladys Berejiklian, as you would know, she said when 80% of the population is vaccinated. You wonder if that's going to take a while to get to that rate.
Well, yeah, we need to get moving. They put a 3-star general in charge. The federal government needs to lift its performance. They're going to go to pharmacy soon. They reckon they're going to have double the Pfizer shots soon, but you still have your doubts, don't you? 80% is unachievable. It just won't happen, especially when you're not allowing vaccination of children. Now, Pfizer are doing trials on children. I think this is really critical in terms of herd immunity and so forth. And with this concern, the Delta variant can hit children. I think 70% is a more realistic target. And I think the federal government has a plan, but they want to leave it until after the next election. No one will say that publicly, but I'm sure that's the case. And that is this system of opening up gradually with these green zone and red zone countries, and no doubt shutting again if there's an outbreak like we have with New Zealand. We're going to move very slowly out of this thing. People are going to have to be patient, but we all need to keep the pressure on governments in terms of vaccinations and quarantine breaches, because we know the New South Wales and Queensland government's mistakes were responsible for this outbreak, and governments need to be kept under pressure, and that's where we as journalists have a role, Danica.
Yeah, absolutely. Andrew Clennell, thank you.